All right. Good afternoon. Every time I'm behind the scenes and hear that, I just want to dance. Like the music is so cool. And let's just say thankful. We're grateful for Nadia, who created the intro and the outro for this. So kudos, Nadia. Thank you so much. Good afternoon again, everyone. We are here on another Monday afternoon to talk about things, books, business, and beyond. And I just want to share with you that there are times when our conversation will take a turn in terms of what we are discussing, because at the end of the day, whether it is something that you have lived, something that you have experienced, something that you have learned to love or to do, it all can be put in a book. It can be written about, it can be talked about, it can be used to impact lives and to change the outcomes, right? And so we are not shy of attacking or talking about, maybe attacking is not the right word, but talking about any the topic that can affect the life of a human. And so we want this Monday sessions to be broad so that we're bringing you information from an educational perspective, right? I think Leslie and I were talking this morning about just the whole thing about marketing and education, entertainment, and a call to action is what this is all about. So if you're seeing me for the first time, or you're just seeing, if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching in the Books to Business group, I am Joan T. Randall. I am your publisher. I am an author. I'm a coach. I am a coach, and I am the author's midwife. And we help you use the power of the pen to write your books so that you can get your message out to the marketplace to build income, impact, and to create and leave a legacy. So I'm going to turn it over to my co-host so she can introduce herself.
Hey, everybody. I am Leslie COTTRELL, and I am so blessed and excited to be together with Joan, serving as the Director of Operations at Victorious You Press. And I also serve in a very fulfilling and fun role as an author coach. And this is something that we are really enjoying doing for writers at this point, primarily on the newer side. But we want to give a firm foundation to writers who are looking for the best way to start, and then the best way to keep going throughout their nonfiction book to keep readers engaged.
I love it. And yes, Leslie has brought a whole level of expertise to Victorious You Press, and we're so excited. There's so much that we have for you. There's so much planning that's going into, what we look like and how we show up in the future for you. So stay tuned. And if you are joining us today, please drop your name in the chat so that we can give you a proper welcome. We want to be able to say hello to you and shout you out. So today we have an important topic that we want to discuss, and the most of what we're talking about today, Leslie is going to be talking about it in the the description of this chat today, I put that we want to talk about an issue that affects a lot of people, but is rarely talked about. Is rarely talked about. And so we want to address that. And there's a lot of people that don't know about it or don't know how it happens. And so, hey, it's great to see you, Apostle. Thank you so much for jumping on. And so we want to address this topic. And before I address this, I want to take you back a little bit to when I first met Leslie in a conversation we had together. And then I saw a deterioration after that. So I met Leslie in 2016. You heard the story already for those of you who, knows about us. And we were rooming together for the very first time. We never met each other, and we were rooming together because we were supporting a publisher at a Lisa Nichols event. And so the one thing I know that we talked about was Leslie had gotten bit by a horsefly. I remember that very, very well. And I did not know to the extent of what would happen after that. But I know that that had happened. And as a result of that, I'm going to let Leslie get into the story and tell you a little bit more about this and what eventually happened and what it is called and how many people have experienced this. And still there is no conversation about it in the US, but there are conversations about it outside of the United States. So Leslie, I'm turning this over to you. This is your show.
It's true. When I first met Joan, I was very ill already. And yes, I had been bitten by a horsefly. And so few people are aware that you can contract Lyme disease from really any biting insect. I hate to freak people out, but it's not just ticks. So I was bitten by this horsefly, and I'll tell you, within 48 hours, I was very, very ill. But the interesting little turn of events was that at that point, I was responsible for my mom's care. We were up in Maine, actually, on a vacation to help her with her homesickness, and she became very ill with an ongoing issue just at the same time. So though I was so sick, but I had to take care of my mom. So how I felt went on the back burner, and I continued to go downhill when Joan and I first met in October of 2016. I was quite ill and had been diagnosed with Lyme disease, Babesia, and Bartonella, which are associated with Lyme, but we always think about that as coming from a tick. Not so in my case. And I was very grateful to be under the care of a naturopath who is called a Lyme literate naturopath. If anyone wants any information on him, please reach out to me. He practices in Southern Maine. And yet I really was not getting better, which, you don't just bounce back from Lyme disease. So months had gone by. Joan and I were involved in working with this publishing company, and I was ill, not taking good care of myself, under an enormous amount of stress and strain, and caring for my mom, and it was all just too much. And I was unaware of it at the time. But when you have Lyme disease, you can get an extra little additional condition called Bell's palsy. And I was just maybe barely starting to feel a little bit of relief from the Lyme. And I woke up feeling this pain that I still can't really describe. It was so strong in the back of my head and in my jaw. And then my eyes started to water, and the pain just got worse and worse and worse throughout the day. And I didn't sleep much at all that night. I had no idea what was going on. And I got up in the wee hours, and I could feel something was bizarre. and turned on the light, and the entire right side of my face had dropped and gone slack, very similar as if you had a stroke, which in my case was Bell's palsy. That was a Sunday, and it happened to be a big playoff day, and I didn't want to drive myself to the emergency room, and I, being the person that I was, hated to bother my husband with taking me, so I waited till the game was over. And then we went to the emergency room, and that became really, I have to say, a comedy of errors. It was a ridiculous experience, and anyone who knows me knows I don't doctor. I don't go to the hospital. So you get an idea for how extreme this had to be. But what developed was crazy. And if you want a very funny comedic approach, you need to watch John Heffron. That's Heffron, who's on YouTube, and he has a Bell's palsy episode because he also has suffered from Bell's palsy. And when I read that, I was crying. I was laughing so hard because was so similar to my experience. Literally, the doctor was dismissive. When I asked him questions, I got I don't know. And when I was really trying to get an answer for the pain, the man called me a liar and told me that you don't get pain with Bell's palsy, which is absolutely not the case. Not everyone has pain, but those that do, it's significant. When I asked about steroids, because that's usually the course of events when you are first diagnosed with Bell's palsy, and honestly, that's really the only reason that I went to the emergency room. I know that there's a great result with having steroids if they're given immediately, and I couldn't get them without a doctor. It was a weekend, so that's why I went. He refused to give me any steroids. He refused to give a prescription because he said, in his opinion, it didn't help. So I went home with nothing except wasted time and frustration. By the time I was able to get a prescription for steroids, I was outside the window, so it really didn't do much good. But Joan and I, as I said, were working together at that point, and she saw a lot of what I was going through at that point that you might want to touch on a little bit, since you were literally seeing me on Zoom, and I apologize for that.
Yeah. Listen, let me tell you, when I realized, so we kept in close contact, right? After I knew that she had the Lyme disease. And because we were working together, it was always me and her. So we kept in close contact. And I remember this is where it hit me so hard, was the day on Zoom when Leslie is so dedicated to anything she puts her mind to, loyal and dedicated. So even in her illness, first of all, even in the illness, she showed up to volunteer for this event. And even with all the stuff she was going through with her mom and her illness, she was still showing up for this publisher, working together to create a lot of mistakes the publisher made. And I remember being on Zoom this one particular time with her. And every time I think about that, I cry till this day, because you were working, you were in pain, you were very uncomfortable. The right side of your face had drooped so bad, and your eye was like opened and it was pouring water, and you had tissue under your eyelid, and the glasses was holding the tissue together, so that till this day, every time I think about that, it brought me to tears, because I saw it and I was so beside myself, because it had changed your face completely. But I also learned some stuff about it through you. And a few years after that, my cousin woke up one morning, went into the mirror. She had a headache, and she woke up. She felt something different with her face. And she woke up and she looked into the mirror, and it was the same thing. One side of her face was just completely dropped. So I want to ask a couple of questions, Leslie, because there's a lot of people who may watch this later, people who are watching now that don't even know what Bell's palsy is. And so I want to ask that question first. What is it? And then secondly, how long is the infection period from when you got the bite from the horsefly to the onset of the Lyme disease? And with Lyme and Babesia and the other stuff, was that what led to the Bell's palsy, or was it a side effect of that?
Well, Bell's palsy is has a viral connection, and I don't think that they really know for sure what brings it on, because something that may bring it on in one person does not bring it on in another. But it is when the one side of your face is affected, and it's like neurologically, it just shuts off. And Joan's right. The eye was literally open. You can't close your eye. So many people have to tape their eye closed, which you can imagine what it's like. And I had to do that for a while. To sleep at night, when you really have no control, you have to tape that eye closed. But there is not anyone that has Lyme disease is not necessarily going to get Bell's palsy. It is more related to the stress, to the viral infection itself, and it's sort of a hit or miss thing. But the one connection that is absolutely sure and true is the stress, and it may come from a virus. It may. I know several people that I have met, unfortunately, contracted Lyme disease after a C-section, or during one woman during her C-section. So it is a period of stress usually that brings it on. And the reason that we wanted to do this show today is to show how little knowledge there is about it. We don't have a day or a week that is to bring Bell's palsy to awareness in this country, which I find amazing. We have Apple Pie Day and Grandma's Day and every day you can think of. But in the United Kingdom, they have a facial paralysis week, which is this week, to bring awareness to this condition. Now, facial paralysis and Bell's palsy aren't necessarily the same thing, but Bell's palsy comes under that umbrella of facial paralysis.
Wow. And one thing I feel like, especially with what you had to go through, it was like the doctor did not know how to treat you, or at least wasn't aware of the case or the treatment, because of how he even responded to your symptoms. They're yours. And you're telling him what is happening. And he's like saying, no, that's not true. So what do you think, as a country, as a community, how do you navigate that? Because just think about the person that's not as astute as you in terms of research and trying to find, things that are natural to be able to use. What would happen to a person who wake up one morning, their face is paralyzed, one side of their face is paralyzed, and going to a doctor to be able to tell what they're feeling, and the doctor not knowing or thinking they're lying? How does someone navigate around that?
It is absolutely terrifying, as you can imagine, because your first thought is going to be that you have suffered a stroke.
Yeah.
And the first line of defense, if you can call it that, would be to make sure that you don't have weakness on that affected side. So on my right side, though, my face was completely slack. I had all the strength in my arm, in my hand, in my leg. There was clearly no stroke that had happened. Although, of course, when I went through the diagnostics in the emergency room, they tested for that. So you would want to make sure that there is no weakness, and to help you not be quite so scared. But especially when the pain is involved, it is a terrifying experience. And I'm not one to recommend to people to go to the emergency room, but certainly that would be your first option when you have something like Bell's palsy, that you don't understand necessarily what is happening to you. And hopefully you may have the benefit of a literate emergency room physician who can help guide you and hopefully get some steroids started immediately, because that is one of the best ways to see a result. And I get asked all the time, well, what is the prognosis like? Is it, are you better in a week? Are you better in a month? Are you better in a year? And everyone is different. So as you can see, I've never recuperated. When you look at my face, I got to, I would say, about 70%. But then I suffered a second thing, which is called synkinesis. And that is when your eye is sort of connected in a different way. So I can't, if I look down or if I look up, my right eye needs to close. If I open my mouth, when I'm chewing, when I'm turning my head a certain way. So the nerves are sort of reattached in a different way. And there is, unfortunately, there is no recovery from that. There is a surgical procedure that can be done that a lot of people have good results with, but you will not grow back. You will not get better once you develop that part of Bell's palsy.
Oh my God. I didn't even know that there was another part to it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's very uncomfortable. And that's another thing that's hard to get people to understand. But it is very, very uncomfortable. The eye never feels right. It's constantly in a state of discomfort. Sometimes the pain comes back. That's how I know when I'm overly stressed.
Yeah.
But people do not really understand this condition, and we've all heard the term resting bee face. I don't like to use that term, but I've literally, on 2 different occasions, I've had, both of them were male, people that have accosted me in public and come right up to me and said, "What's wrong with you? Can't you crack a smile to save your life?" And one guy just kept coming after me. It was outside a grocery store. So it just shows the lack of awareness to the fact that it's something that you can't change, you don't have control over.
And you know what? That is so that just, oh my God, that opened up a whole nother story, because somebody may look at you, and because you can't even, first of all, the lack of control of your eye muscle and nerve or whatever it's doing, right? And then maybe difficulty smiling, right? Because one side is just neurologically loose, right? And so it's hard to smile. And then people may not know that that is what they're looking at, and just assume that you are just angry or ornery or mad, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the irony is, the wider you smile, I'm not going to do it on camera, but the wider you smile, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
So you literally train yourself to kind of hold your face in a certain way. So A, it's less uncomfortable, but B, you're not scaring little children on the street. And that gets misrepresented all the time.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry to hear that. I mean, it just goes to show how little we know about that condition. So Leslie, if you had an opportunity to bring about more of an awareness to this condition, or if we could just wave a wand somehow, there's an opportunity for us, or the country, the town, wherever, state, to do something about this, to bring more awareness, what would that be?
In so many ways, it always comes back to education. But I would love to see this country do a better job of educating people on the symptoms and what to do, and what to do quickly, and not let it, laminate and put off going to have it looked at. And then for yourself, because it always comes down to being a great self-advocate, research, research, research. Get on Facebook and join every Bell's palsy group that you can find, because there is new information all the time. And ironically, that's where I hear it first most of the time, is through the Bell's palsy Facebook groups. But you will also have that community of people who've gone through the same thing and are experiencing the same experiences, perhaps the same pain. And one of the overwhelming, as you can imagine, ongoing complications of this is depression and anxiety.
Wow.
And the suicide rate is greater because people just, if you know you're not ever going to change, it's too much for some people. But it is also just a part of Bell's palsy, that you have a change in energy. I still have issues with that today. And sometimes I'm sure, like, is it left over from the Lyme? Is it Bell's palsy? What is it? But having that community of people who understand exactly what you're going through is paramount in sort of restabilizing yourself and not going down the rabbit hole of anxiety and depression.
Wow. That is so profound. I wish we could talk more about this, but our time is getting closer. I think we need to have another conversation probably next week just to follow up a little bit more on this. But I also want to talk about, there's so many things I want to talk about it, because I want to talk about when kids get it, and do you know of children that do have it, right? And then just being able to find the purpose in how to keep yourself motivated to keep going, right? Because looking at your face in the mirror, that was not how you were born. And sometimes people can get, that can make a big difference in how somebody thinks about themselves, their self-esteem, because of how they're viewed by the public. And
Mm.
especially kids, how cruel sometimes children can be to each other. So next week, I think we should continue this conversation and talk a little bit more about that part next week. And then also, for those who might be listening or watching or know someone with Bell's palsy or have experienced it, if you'd like to join us on the show, would love to have you to have a conversation with you about it. But also, just finding the purpose in your life, right? Being able to say, this is something out of my control. It has happened to me. I can still see, I can still hear, I can still taste, I can still smell, I can still feel. And as long as there is breath in your body, how do you turn your pain into purpose? How do you turn your pain into a platform? Because the more people that come together that bring an awareness to it, maybe nationally or the government is not doing anything, but let me tell you, people can come together and make noise and talk about it on TikTok and get it to be, trending so that people can watch. There is, when we come together and unite, we can make things happen, right? But before we wrap up today's, program, I'd love for you to talk about what is happening with on your world at VUIP and what we have available starting tomorrow.
We are so excited about this. We had a great masterclass just a couple of weeks ago on helping new writers sort of get their bearings, get started. How do I begin to write my book? Now we're taking it to the next level, and we've developed this very cool 4-week course on the creativity that can be involved in writing your nonfiction book. So we will deal with the foundational structure of where to get started, how to write your book, how to learn to show, not tell, how to use dialogue, how to write shorter sentences so they're concise and pack a punch, how to make your words matter, right all the way through to, now what do I do with my book? It's done. What's my next step? So we are super excited to launch that tomorrow, and we still will let some people come in if this is something that interests you. We start tomorrow night at 5:45 Eastern Standard Time.
Is there a link I could drop in the chat for it, Leslie?
Let's see if I can grab one real quickly here, because we do have a link.
If not, I can always just attach it when we're done with the live, so it's on there, so they can just go right ahead and make their.
I'm trying to grab one here real quickly. I should have prepared that before we started.
That's okay.
Okay.
So we have been talking today, if you're just joining us, we've been talking today about the effects of Bell's palsy and what it can do to individuals that get it. You don't have to do anything for it to happen to you. It could, as I said earlier, this is something that affected Leslie after a series of events that kind of led up to stress related stuff. And she was sick and then she had it. Well, my cousin just woke up one morning and one side of her face was just dropped. Her eyes were open. She couldn't close her eyes. Same thing with Leslie. Leslie said she had to tape her eyes shut just to get sleep. So this is something that we don't talk about. A lot of people don't know about it. Had I not know that my cousin experienced that, I would have just, Leslie would have been the only case that I know. So it's here, right? It happens to children too. And so we really want to bring awareness to it. Thank you. I'm going to just grab this and put it in the chat. So we want to bring awareness to this condition. So that, did I put it in the chat? I think I did. I don't know. Oh no, I put it in the chat, not in the comments. There we go. There we go. That's different. It's now in the comments.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're interested in being a part of our writing, what is it called? Our writing workshop. Here is the link. Just click on the link. There is a fee. Of course, there is an investment fee. But when you're done, you're so versed in terms of how you write creatively with your nonfiction books. So jump in and we could scholarship a couple of people if you feel like you would love to join it, but financially cannot afford it. We are open to doing some scholarships for people that want to be a part of it, but cannot afford it. So reach out to us if you are in that boat. We'll be more than happy to scholarship that for you. So at least you can take the class. Leslie, I'm going to turn it over to you for your final words.
I just want to thank Joan for the opportunity to bring this information forward today. And you can come on to our Facebook page, which is Books, Business, and Beyond, and connect with me there. But anyone who wants to talk about it or needs to vent about it or needs someone to hear what they have to say, please reach out to me there and we will connect immediately, because there's nothing like being able to discuss this with someone who's been in the same situation. We're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And hello, blessings, Jamaican TV. We're happy to have you join us. You should get some friends to join us on Monday at 12:30, but thank you for jumping in. So again, if you know anybody that has been affected with Bell's palsy, would love to hear from you. Would love to be able to talk to someone next week that knows somebody that had this condition or have had this condition. We don't talk a lot about it. And sometimes people look at people and see facial expressions and don't understand why, what is going on behind that expression. Maybe it's Bell's palsy and, they don't want to talk about it, or embarrassed or shame, right, Leslie? Because sometimes it comes with that level of shame, being very uncomfortable because your face looks different, right? But the more we know is the better we are able to treat people with kindness. That's the most important thing, right? Treating people with kindness. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And we want to be more aware, especially for those who knows children with this condition, right? So that's it for us today. Thank you. The link is in the chat if you want to join our writing session starting tomorrow. It's a 4-week session. So even if you don't join tomorrow, you're not too late. We can get you caught up next week. It's on Tuesdays at 5:45 for the next 4 weeks. And again, if you would like this to be scholarshiped, let us know and we'll see what we can do to get you into the class starting tomorrow. All right, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to talking with you again next week, same time, same place, 12:30 p.m. And we're broadcasting in the Books to Business and Beyond group and our Victorious You Press page on YouTube. And remember, don't let anybody else tell your story. Use the power of the pen to write your own story so that you can leave a legacy for your children's children. God bless you, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye now.